So first, congrats on the album, the release of the album in the first place, man.
Oh, thank you, man. I'm proud of it, for sure.
No, exactly. Was there a moment when you were like, I'm going to start recording stuff for the album? Or was these just kind of, are you just constantly recording and then these were the songs you picked for it?
It's a combination of both. Like, I'm constantly just making stuff, right? That's what you got to get your 10,000 hours in, right? Mm-hmm. So I'm just constantly making stuff. When I decided to actually, like, sit down and make an album was when I made the beat for Smile with Amir. Okay. I made that beat, and I'm like, oh, yo, like, I'm pretty fucking good at this shit. Right. Like, I was feeling, like, a lot of, like, imposter syndrome around them. I was like, my beats are all right, but I want them to be, like, better, right? And then that was the first time I was like, oh, yo, I'm, like, I got the skill to, like, do this, you know? And that was back in, fucking February, March?
Oh, wow.
Right. Yeah, so I think that beat, I made that beat, and then after that, I was like, all right, well, let me make an album. Let me just make a bunch of fucking beats.
Right.
And, I just got the best ones I liked. I got the ones that I wanted verses on, and I sent those over to the people. They got the verses back. What took so long about it was I did it, like, right as COVID started really, like, hitting the U.S., so, like, as soon as people were like, oh, shit, I'm out of a job, is when I hit them up for a verse, right?
Right.
So it took a while to get all those verses back in. But I think it worked out because a couple instrumentals on there, or even that song with Metro, Not Enough Time, mm-hmm. That was something that wasn't even planned for the album that I threw on there, like, last minute.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, along with, what's the other song? Right There, I think it's the fourth track. It's the instrumental. That one... I made that back-to-back with Standing Together, that single I made. And I do that on the album, like, last minute, and it fit perfectly. So,
right.
So it was kind of a blessing in disguise, having to wait this long.
Right, yeah, it gave you more time to go through the, little details and all of that.
Yeah.
That's what's up. How did you go about choosing the verses and features you got for the album?
When I first started out, I honestly did not expect this many verses, right? I didn't expect everyone to, like, say yes.
Okay.
And doing this album was, like, a real confidence booster because everyone who I asked was like, yeah, I'm down, right? So what I did is I got a bunch of the beats together, and I'm like, all right, who sounds good on this, right? And if it's someone I hadn't worked with before, I'll be like, all right, let me put that on the maybe list, right? Like Metro World Peace, I had never worked with him before, prior to this album, and I had a lot of beats that, like, he sounds good on these, but I don't know him. So I hit him up, and he's like, oh, yo, I was about to hit you up, like, soon too. Wow. For a beat. Yeah, so it just worked out perfectly, and yeah, so I would get a beat, and then decide, like, all right, who sounds good on this, and usually it was a good fit, and they would deliver a verse that fit perfectly. So yeah,
that's awesome. Yeah, it's great when stuff works out like that.
Mm-hmm.
Let's go a little further back. Where are you from?
Oh, I'm from LA, born and raised.
Okay. Did you listen to a lot of stuff growing up, like music and everything?
I didn't really get, like, when I was younger, I would listen to, like, music, like, on the radio. Mm-hmm. Right. Like, my parents would listen to, like, a lot of oldies. So that's probably why I like the sound of, like, old ass records. Mm-hmm. Or, like, they would listen to, like, whatever pop or hip-hop songs were on. But I didn't really, like, fall in love with music until, like, Guitar Hero. Hero 3. Because, I guess my friends didn't listen to, like, a lot of rock. So this was, like, brand new to me.
Right.
The first group I really, like, fell in love with was, like, Nirvana, I want to say. My cousin, he knew I was, like, into rock. And then he was like, I have this greatest hits CD that was probably burnt or something. Like, just, like, real obscure, like, an unofficial Nirvana, like, release. It was like a mixtape of Nirvana songs, right. And he gave it to me. And I would, like, put that shit on my PlayStation, and I would just listen to it all day. But, yeah. And then I didn't get into hip-hop until, 2012? I must have been, like, how old are people in ninth grade? Like 14, 15?
I'm so bad at that type of math.
Yeah.
No, I have no idea. That sounds about right, though.
Yeah, 2012. It was Good Kid, Mad City.
Okay.
And Odd Future. That's what got me into hip hop. And yeah, that was 2012. That was 8 years ago. Fuck. I'm old.
Right, no.
Yeah, that's when I got into hip hop. Like around then is when I was like, oh, okay, hip hop's not just Rack City by Tyga,
Right.
because that was a popular song at the time.
Right.
Yeah, and that was just kind of like the surface level mainstream hip hop. I didn't really understand hip hop that much until Odd Future, Kendrick Lamar, and then my friend also put me on to like Wu-Tang and all that stuff.
Right.
But yeah.
Right. So when did you start making music then?
I've been on and off since I was like 14, I want to say.
Okay.
Like it was always a hobby. It never became this until like 2018.
Okay.
You know the game Little Big Planet 2?
Of course.
Yeah, so that music sequencer in there, it's its own like FL Studio.
Oh. Really?
I would fuck around in that. And I would make songs in there, but like I would publish them on the game, but like no one went to that game to listen to music.
Right, yeah, it wasn't
just like background. So,
wasn't the hotbed for a new and emerging
it wasn't
artist.
SoundCloud, you know?
Yeah.
It wasn't SoundCloud or Bandcamp. So like I guess 14, but like I would never be consistent with it. I would do it for like a couple months and then I wouldn't touch it again. For like months at a time.
Mm-hmm.
It didn't start taking seriously till like late 2018, I want to say.
Okay.
Yeah, because music was always just a hobby because I play guitar too, and that was just like a hobby. I got the Pocket Operator 33. That's like this small. Do I have it here? No, it's probably on my shelf. It's like this really small sampler. It's like the size of a calculator.
Oh wow.
And it's really good. It's really good for like $98. It's a really good sampler. For anyone who's starting out, like I recommend that one 100%. And I started playing around with that, and then I'm like, oh, I'm kind of like good at this, right? And I started posting them on Twitter, and then through there, I just kind of like, oh, I got the MPC. That's when it really like took off. I got that off of like OfferUp. It's OfferUp.
No, I'm not familiar.
It's like an app. It's like Craigslist, but it's an app.
Okay.
So I just bought a used MPC off of there for like $200.
Oh, that's not bad.
And yeah, it's not bad at all. And then I just went from there, and now I'm here.
Right. Right. And when you're looking for samples, are you digging in crates, I guess I should say, or are you kind of more the because I know some people use YouTube, but some people still go to the record store. Do you have a preference on that?
YouTube is my preference. Yeah.
Okay.
I have done like in-person digging. It's a little tricky, right? It's something I'm still learning, and I've kind of had to stop to learn because of COVID, which sucks. And Amoeba was like the dollar bin in Amoeba was my spot,
Right.
and Amoeba is like it's gone. Well, for now, they're going up again, but that location is not in business anymore.
Right. Yeah, they moved recently.
Yeah, they're not going to open up until COVID dies down again.
Yeah.
When we don't know when the fuck that is.
Yeah.
So I also prefer YouTube because through the internet I can find out like who the songwriters are, right? And I can like go through their catalog of whoever they wrote for.
Right.
I can like basically it's like just this endless. The internet has become this endless bottomless pit of just a lot of music that's just out there, right? And, like people upload full albums to YouTube, so like why wouldn't I go on there, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so I think YouTube mainly. Like, that's just my go-to. Like,
Right.
I haven't been to a record store since January.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's been tough. I wanted to go out for record store day, but I also didn't want to risk it because I feel like the size of the stores are just way too small for me to just be rummaging around in there.
Yeah, there's some record stores that I saw one where they do appointments.
Oh,
like,
that's interesting.
You have an hour slot, and like 5 people are allowed in that 1 hour.
That's insane.
Shop. Yeah, it's crazy.
That's insane. Yeah, no, that's so wild. But it's crazy because go back to what you were saying because I used to go to this record store when I lived in Florida, and I was pretty good friends with the dude there, and I was telling him, I was like, yeah, there's so much online, like even some of this older stuff, if it's not on streaming, it's on YouTube somewhere. But I think he said some crazy statistic where it's like 80 to like 85% of music ever recorded still is not up on the internet, even with like the right amount in there, which is like just an insane amount of music just still floating around in the air somewhere.
And it's crazy because there is an insane amount of music online.
That's what I'm saying, yeah.
To think that there's like 8 times worth as much just like out there, right?
Yeah.
that's why I was trying to do both the internet digging and physical digging to be like, oh, I haven't seen this before. What is this, right? Because I'm sure there's a lot of records that that are just sitting in basements or record stores that no one is sampling.
Right. Yeah, no, it's insane. So, what was your, I guess, mind state going into recording the project? Were you like, I want to make sure, it sounds like this, or I kind of want to do, because it's kind of like the I am ready now to the I'm just getting started. It kind of tells this little, sequence story. I didn't know if that was a plan going into it, or how much of that thought process was thought out before the recording started.
Not a lot of, planning went into this, other than, getting verses, right? The whole I am ready now and I'm just getting started, that was something kind of after the fact, right? Because I felt like it needed some kind of glue to put it together. And I had that one flip, I am ready now, the intro track, and I'm like, well, fuck it, let's make it this, because I truly do feel like I'm ready now. Right. I feel like I've upgraded a lot since making this album. And I'm getting, people are tagging me now, oh, I need a G.Rola beat. That's never happened to me before. Right. Yeah, so I do feel like I am ready now, but also, I have a lot of room to... I still don't have my 10,000 hours, right? But, okay. And that's what the just getting started is, this is just the beginning. I'm only getting better from here. Yeah. So that was just kind of, after the fact. Yeah. Yeah, it was an idea that came to me afterwards. Okay. It was, really late in the album process, yeah.
Because I remember when I interviewed you and Apollo's Harp and everyone was here, you guys talked about how you bounced ideas off each other. Were they in the process of sequencing the track list, or how did they play a role, if any, in the creation?
This one was kind of unusual because of COVID. Yeah. I won't go too much into personal details, but I couldn't stop and ask one of them to listen to the album because they were struggling to keep their job, right? Yeah. Yeah. So this one was kind of absent from Apollo feedback and critique for a while. I would keep them updated, oh, I got all the features in, or oh, I'm getting a feature from so and so, blah blah blah. Or I would send one or two tracks, but this one was mainly independent, I want to say, which was unusual for Apollo release. Usually we send it to each other and we get legit feedback. I didn't really get feedback until it was done, and the feedback was, this is 10 out of 10 perfect. Right. Yeah. So, this one was kind of distance from that usual collaboration I'm used to with them. Yeah. But I think it came out good. Yeah.
Did you think that affected the process and your personal process in any way? Not kind of having to trust your own instincts when in terms of oh, this sounds good after this song and all that?
Yeah, actually. Yeah, because, let me think on that a little more. Hold on.
No, take your time, yeah.
My instinct says yes. I hadn't really thought about it, though. Yeah. I think you're onto something. Yeah, I think a lot of it was kind of having to rely on myself to, is this good for my standards, right? Okay. Is this something that I'm proud of, right? Because I'm sure I could send them a track I'm not proud of, and they could be like, yo, this is heat, right? Because they're a different person than I am, right? But a lot of it was having to sit down and go I don't think this fits, right? Or to think, this is missing something. Let me add something to it, right? And I think definitely that's a good lesson to have learned, for sure. Right. Yeah, that's a great question.
Yeah, thank you. So was there a lot of stuff left on the cutting room floor after the final track list was done? But how many songs would you say were made before you got that 100%. Final 13, 14?
In terms of beats, because the thing with the beat is it doesn't have to be, the project file, it doesn't have to be a completed beat. It could be just some chops or some general loops. I made probably, at the very least, 100 beats. Oh, wow. For this project, yeah. And mainly because I was just creating beats, right? And it was when the Same at Home order first hit. So I was just at home, right? Right. So I was like, all right, well, I got to do something. So I was just making beats left and right. There was a lot on the cutting room floor. I can't say how much. I have a whole in my notes app, I just have a whole list of beats I made for it. And then through there, I would like, all right, here are the contenders. Here's what I'm considering for the album. Everything else either became something to throw in a beat pack or just something that just never saw the light of day. Because for like, I think for beat makers, for every one beat that's like published, there's like 10 that just are half finished and just sitting on the hard drive.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I think mainly just musicians in general. Like, there's a lot of like stuff just like that's never going to come out because either you've done better stuff since or it just wasn't panning out the way you wanted to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, especially for someone, you know, like yourself who's just constantly creating. I'm sure you make stuff that you're like, this is fire now, and then, like, I don't know, you wake up the next morning, you're like, nah, I can probably tweak this, or like, nah, I'm just gonna leave it down there and stuff like that.
Yeah, you just gotta move on sometimes.
Yeah,
no,
exactly.
You can't belabor on one point, on one beat for, like, ever,
Yeah. So, because Ulysses made the cover art for this, so did he hear the songs before he made the cover art, or is that just, because I know he's kind of real big into the graphic design stuff, so is that just something that he had around, or is that something, how involved were you in the process of getting the cover art?
The original cover art was this drawing I did. It was just a bunch of little circles.
Mm-hmm.
I might post it one day, but it was just kind of like this big circle, but it's made up of a bunch of little circles, and he tweaked that to what the final image is, right? And then I also, like, I wanted to flex the track list a bit to show off all the features. So I was like, maybe like an OBI strip. He's like, oh, 100%. I'm doing an OBI strip. So I gave him some guidelines. I also said, I told him like I wanted kind of like an old school looking like album cover, just something like real classic looking. And I gave him some couple pointers, but mainly I just wanted him. This was my first like Ulysses design that I got. Okay. Right. So I was excited. Right. I'm a big fan of his artwork.
Definitely.
But when I told him, I just gave him a couple guidelines, and I let him run loose, and he did perfectly.
Yeah, that's awesome. You were talking about how you do draw. So when did you start drawing and doing the art?
I draw when I get beat block. Yeah. So like, and beat block doesn't necessarily mean like I sit down and nothing comes to me. It's just I sit down and I'm not making anything I like. Right. Those are those beats that like don't get published. It's just like, fuck, I suck today, right?
Yeah.
So, and I feel creatively unfulfilled when that happens. So what I do is I go to art, right? And that is still kind of a hobby for me. And I've done commissions here and there, but like it's still like I guess still sacred.
Yeah.
Where it's not something I have to market or like monetize. I don't feel pressure to monetize it, right?
Right.
It's just still very. I haven't updated my Instagram art page in forever because I've just been making beats, right?
Yeah.
So I got into drawing. I don't know exactly when. Oh, I started taking it, I guess, a little more seriously at January of this year. I just needed something to do because I was in between jobs at the moment, so I just needed something to do. In the meantime, but I had been drawing for a good deal of my life because my dad, he's a really good drawer, like 100% great. He has like really good paintings. Like if you think I'm good, he's like 100 times better than me.
Okay.
Right? So like I was just been drawing since childhood because I wanted to be like my dad, right?
Yeah.
It wasn't until like I guess January this year I was like, let me try it out like for reals this time.
Okay.
But it's still a hobby, which I appreciate.
Right.
It's still a passion that I don't have to like. I don't feel obligated to like monetize.
Yeah, no, definitely, yeah, because I mean it's like pretty much almost every other interview I post, you're doing a little like drawing for it and stuff like that, and I appreciate that because that's so fire. I think that's
because I have a bad attention span.
Oh my god, bro.
That's probably why I'm tearing through beats.
Yeah,
because I'm like, all right, I'm bored of this beat. Let's move on. But I have a hard time sitting down and listening to audio by itself.
Yeah.
Because then I go on my phone and I'm on Twitter and I haven't been paying attention to the interview for the past 15 minutes, right?
Yeah.
But if I'm drawing, it doesn't. It allows me to keep my hands and mind busy while still ingesting whatever information I'm getting.
Right. No.
So that's why I do those. And I figured I'd rather share them because you appreciate them and the artist appreciates them.
Yeah. No, I think
it's
it's
just
so
a good
sick.
time all around.
Yeah. No, I think it's so sick. I know, but I'm the same way though. Where I'll be like in the middle of an album, and then I catch myself like the album ends, and I'm like 5 games the Subway Surfers in, and I'm like, oh shit, I didn't hear those last like 5 songs. Like I'm trash at that.
Yeah.
So I guess they kind of did when you said you kind of helped design the album cover, but how much do you think the drawing and the music, how often do you think they're going to cross paths, if you think they're ever going to cross paths, or if you had any ideas for that?
Like, if I was gonna make, like, if the next album, would I draw it, is what you're asking?
Yeah, like, how, like, do you think you ever start, like, strictly doing your own cover arts, or do you think you start doing them for other people, or?
I've done it for a few other people. I did one for Black Kenshi, you know him?
Yeah, I think I've heard the name.
Yeah. I did one for an EP he did a while back.
Okay.
I did one for a single for Elijah Quinton on track 2. I think, Keep the Moon in Mind is a single he did.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the art I did for it. So I have done it for other people. I guess for myself, for SoundCloud, like, I do a lot of, like, the weird paintings and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's me. Like, that's just me fucking around on the Photoshop app. So I have done it before. The Standing Together one, I didn't draw it, but, like, I photo edited that one.
Okay.
So it's happened before. But for albums, like, I want, like, an outside person to, like, really interpret the music for me into a real sense, right?
Yeah.
Because if I start doing my own album, like, I guess the album title kind of has, like, a lot of weight to it. But if I start doing, like, my own album artwork, I'm going to feel pressured to be like, oh, is this good enough, right? When I can put that pressure on someone else who, like, knows what the fuck they're doing.
Right. I'm following.
Someone who's been doing art for, like, way longer than I have, right?
Yeah.
Longer than January.
Okay.
And then also, I had another thing to say. I completely forgot. We can move on.
Yeah, no, we'll come back to it. I just have a little, like, so did the beat I'm Ready Now come before, and then you named an album after that? Or how did that come about?
Yeah, I just made that beat, right?
Yeah.
To make it. And I'm like, I think this fits the album. I could put it somewhere, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then I was just kind of listening to it on loop. And then after a while, I was like, oh, shit. That can be the title of the album. I Am Ready Now. Right? Because I was still looking for that, like, glue or concept. So it's just something that kind of happened organically.
Okay.
Right? And I was listening to a lot of Donuts by Dilla. And he hides a lot of, like, messages like that. He, like, speaks through the sample.
Right.
So I guess my mind just made the connection to do that.
Right. How important was it for you to, I guess, because you're kind of talking about a concept and, you know, the Dilla influence, was it important for you to have a concept going into the project? Or were you just like, like you said, you were like, oh, this is a crazy, like, I'm going to start recording the album now?
I think it's important, maybe not to have a concept, but some kind of, like, connection once you have the finished product.
Mm-hmm.
I do think it does help when you're starting out, but, like, if your only my only reference starting out was, I want shit that sounds like Smile, that beat, right? That first beat I made. I want shit that sounds like that. That was mainly my only driving force. I think it's important to have one kind of, like, idea in your head to keep you guided, because otherwise you're going to end up with, like, I Am Ready Now, and then the next beat's a trap beat, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, you can make it work. I mean, like, I know Pepper, his last tape, he had a trap beat on there, but it fit perfectly, right? It didn't feel out of place whatsoever, and I'm pretty sure he had, like, some kind of cohesive idea in his head on what it was going to sound like, right? But yeah, I think it was just, I was just creating, and then I slowly found what the album was through the process. Right.
That's interesting. So you were talking about listening to Donuts a lot. Were you listening to a lot of stuff while creating the album? Like, when you saying you would draw when you have the beat blocks, do you listen to other artists, like, while you're drawing? In terms of, like, inspiration and stuff like that? Inspiration?
Donuts is probably my favorite album ever.
Okay.
So that's always just keeping me going.
Right.
Like, that's usually on loop. I think Don't Cry by Dilla is still my number 1 song on Spotify.
Okay.
And I haven't listened to it in a minute. And it's still number 1 because it just has that many plays on it.
It's insane.
Yeah, it's fucking Dilla is
mind blowing.
Dilla is on another level.
It's
like,
insane what he can do.
yeah, it's like he's 100% an inspiration, and I'm pretty sure it comes off in the music, but he's 100% an inspiration.
Right.
I was also listening to a lot of Knowledge.
Okay.
I was going because I had listened to like Hood Dreams or Hud Dreams. I'm not sure how it's pronounced, but that one and like a couple other or the anthology tape he has on streaming. But I was making my way through like the more like his Bandcamp releases, so I was just trying to get like in Knowledge's mind, right? Because I think he does have he's fantastic at finding pockets in a beat, right? So I was just listening to a lot of Knowledge and Dilla for this project mainly. Oh, actually, I completely forgot. Nicholas Craven, you know him, right?
Yeah.
I was listening to a lot of him actually.
He's insane.
Like a lot of loops, right? And this album's a lot of loops. But I was listening to a lot of him when I first started. So I think that's mainly what kind of triggered it. Yeah, I was just making loops and chops like here and there. I was hardly ever adding drums to stuff for this album.
Okay.
Right? Not until recently where I'm like, all right, let me pick up my drum game a bit. But for this one, it was mainly loops and chops from Nicholas Craven I was listening to.
That's what's up. Yeah, because, what is it, like not too long, maybe only a couple days after you dropped the album, you dropped that Flip for the new SZA single. Is that when you flip a song, is it just a song that you kind of have on repeat? That you're like, oh, I want to do this to it? Or do you hear a song and you're like, oh, I have an idea for it? Or how's your process for choosing what song you want to add a new instrumental to?
It's mainly just, a lot of the times I make a beat and I'm like, it's missing something, right? And then I throw a verse on it, like an acapella on it.
Okay.
For the SZA one, that one was like, yo, let me flip this, right? Let me try something out.
Right.
And I think it came out well. But
I think it's fire.
Thank you.
Yeah, for sure.
But more often than not, it's the beat, and then I throw the verse on there.
Oh, that's interesting.
And it turns out like really well, surprisingly, for being not that planned out.
Right.
But more often than not, it's like if it's a trending artist, then chances are I heard the song and I'm like, let me flip this. Like I did a flip of 645 AR.
Right.
And I had that week I was having beat block, so I'm like, all right, let me tweet publicly that I'm gonna flip this to keep myself like accountable, right? Because I just needed to do something. I'm like, all right, let me do 645 AR is not in my wheelhouse. Right. I've grown to like that song with FKA Twigs.
I kind of like that song a lot, actually. I think that song's pretty sick.
But like at the time, I'm like, I was not listening to 645 AR. That was more like, all right, this song's all right. Let me see if I can make heat with this. It was kind of like a challenge to myself.
Okay. That's interesting. How would you say, if at all, has being in Apollo's Harp affected your music?
Oh, 100%. It has improved it, I think. Because, like, we haven't even really we did Dawn is the Enemy, but we haven't really collaborated in a large sense like that. But it's this friendly competition vibe that's kind of been built, right? Because you don't want to be the weak link in the group, right?
Right.
You want to show up and, like, kick some ass, right? You want to, like, show up. With every release, you want to, like, prove, like, yeah, I'm maybe not the best Apollo Harp member, but, like, yeah, I deserve to be in here, right? Right. Especially with, like, such talented dudes like Ulysses, Achilles, and Vilton Hill, like, really good producers, right? I don't want G.Rola beats to be overshadowed by them. Right. And, like, vice versa. They don't want G.Rola to overshadow them. For sure. Right, so they're coming out swinging. Yeah, no. It 100%, like, improved my music.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's really sick. What else do you have coming up? I mean, I know you just dropped this album, or do you have a lot more kind of in store that you're ready to talk about, or?
There's a lot of G.Rola beats out in the wild. Okay. Like, I had a pack earlier, like, before the album dropped. So there's a lot of beats out there. I don't know if they're going to get rapped on anytime soon, but you should get used to seeing produced by G.Rola next to some songs. I got something in the works with J Cinema. Okay. Yeah. So he's one of the dudes I would send beats to, and he actually rapped on all the ones I send him. So we were like, all right, well, let's do something with this, right? So I sent him one last pack, and I think he's gonna record on a couple of those, and then we're gonna finalize it, and I think we're just gonna put it out. Yeah. Awesome. So I got something with J Cinema. Me and Achille are working on a joint project.
Oh,
I don't want to give too much details, but it's the first like producer to producer, like one-on-one producer collab I've done. So, and I think for him, I think it is too. So we're still working out, like, we're still learning about it and learning out the kinks. But we got something in the works. I'm currently like finding the sound of the next album. Right now, it's kind of like I'm sampling a lot of disco, and I'm gonna see where that goes.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah. I have a couple tracks that I'm happy with. I want to see if I can spice it up a little. So like not all the tracks sound the same, right? So I'm gonna see where that leads me. And then I'm also working on another beat pack, just so the people DMing me for beats I have something to send them.
Right.
But yeah, that's what I got in the works at the moment.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Do you prefer beat packs, or do you prefer, or like when someone hits you up, are you like, I'm gonna make a pack of beats for this person, or do you just kind of like you're saying, like you kind of make beat packs, and then when someone asks, you're able to send out that pack of beats?
I prefer making a beat pack specifically for one artist because it's easier for me to hear them on top of it.
Right.
Like if I do like to do beat packs because it's just like it's just like a variety of stuff that's still like it still feels like G.Rola, but it's a good variety. So like I can send that to several different artists, and each person can grab whatever they need out of there, right? Like everyone walks away satisfied, right? But I do enjoy like for like J Cinema, I'm like, all right, let me sit down and let me make a J Cinema beat. Let me make a J Cinema G.Rola beat. Right, and that I do enjoy because it does give me some kind of like direction.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
All right. I think that's all the questions I have, man. Thank you for coming by again. Congrats on the album. It's insane.
Oh, thank you.
I love the album a lot.
Thank
it's been
you.
on repeat. Yeah. Now that I finally got my damn car back, I can see how it sounds when I'm driving around and stuff. So
yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, definitely.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it.
No, yeah, I appreciate you.